We have a lot to get into with the two of you. So I'm really excited because it's interesting that I'm talking with you both because you both kind of come into All Stars with kind of the same story in that you both have not been on the MTV show in a main capacity for a while, but you have been absolutely killing it over on All Stars. Brad, I want to start with you because you and I spoke earlier this year about All Stars 4, where admittedly during that and your appearance on 39, you were not in a great headspace. So what was your headspace like coming into 40, especially going right after those types of performances?
Gosh, Mike, touchy subject, of course, but I'm an open book. It wasn't the best departure. Unfortunately, there were still some situations at home where I was not in control. Well, it's hard to. It's There were people close to me making choices that I couldn't control. I've been seeing a professional now for almost a year, a therapist, and I just want to say this and be transparent because I'd like to point out is to anybody that has especially other people in their lives that are sharing negative thoughts on a regular basis. If you are receiving from somebody else or having yourself um, negative thoughts that are going to take up half of a conversation or a relationship, if it's
Hmm.
consistently over half negative thoughts, what I'm going to say is I'm urging anybody experiencing that to seek professional help because it's going to help you manage your situation. I'm at a spot now where things are a lot more manageable because of the boundaries that I've put in place prior to season 40. And a lot of my castmates do know this. I was unfortunately going through another traumatic experience that was probably even a little bit worse than All Stars 4, unfortunately. So it was a challenge. I did go, and John, I think you know this. I went 4 full nights, almost 5 full nights with no sleep due to jet
Mhm.
lag when I got there. The
Again,
first,
wow.
yes. Oh my gosh,
The
brutal,
adjustment
Mike.
period is hard.
Yes. So a lot of people went like 1 or 2 nights. I didn't have sleeping medication. I was like trying to fall asleep to um, just like massage music, like 528 frequency.
Forget it. In that house, it was basically like we were all sleeping in the same room, like with the
Right.
noise it was
Yes.
crazy.
Ironically, I was able to sleep better in the house than the hotel leading up to it. But Mike, just to get back to what your question was, like it was another challenging season for me, but I felt like it went a little better than All Stars 4. And that's because I've been doing the work at home. I was more prepared, but I did struggle with sleep. When you see the toga party, I was sleeping for a majority of that. I did the intro and everything, but then I had to focus on my sleep to compete for the team. So it was a challenging season, but I'm not one to make excuses. And I will say that I've been doing the work at home so I can show up and still do my best. I just didn't have the departure that I was hoping for, but I had some great friends in place to help me, you know, finish my training program and get on the road. And I did the best I could with it. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for being
Okay.
so open. And I'm glad, you're on the other side of it, or at least on the path towards mending that. John A., what about
Thank
you?
you.
Because again, you were such a different person coming into this season than you were leaving your last one in X's 2. What was that feeling like coming back into that
Oh man,
setting?
all the way back to X's too. um, you know, I am such a different person than I was back then. That's part of the reason why I wanted to come to season 40 because I feel like, after doing All Stars, I kind of conquered that. And it was something personal to myself that I wanted to, you know, prove that I could compete with the best of the best and that I was someone that, can show up and ultimately win a flagship as well.
Mm,
That wasn't in the cards for me this time. And as Brad said, like, this similar situation. I was going through some things before leaving for this season, and um, I will say, like, okay, you can train as much as you want for the show, but 90% of this game is mental, and it will push you to a point that you even start to question yourself, like your own abilities, and you know in this situation, like I was breaking down and but when it came down to like game time and when TJ blows the horn, I'm just like, I gotta like put all this shit aside and do it.
So, how much did that headspace inform one of the reasons maybe why you're talking with me today, which is you are told, okay, it's your turn to volunteer to be a target, and you choose not to. And then we hear in this episode, in a bit of the fallout, Naya says that that was disrespectful. Corey says, like, well, now Jonna's weighing me down because now everyone's looking at her negatively. Talk me
Mhm.
through sort of your approach to trying not to volunteer. And then did you get a sense of that sort of reaction afterwards?
Um, so the reason why that I was not trying to volunteer is because I knew what was going on. I knew that I was being set up. So this whole self-nomination thing was brilliantly organized, I think, by Arrow One. um, and it was a way. So when you feel out of control in the game, like it's a way to control the game and the situation that's going on. I
Hmm.
knew that just based off of watching the last, couple episodes or, couple challenges and the nomination process, all of it, that ultimately, you know, people are saying they're self-nominating, but it was a way to control what was actually going on in the game.
Mm.
So I know it looks like I was being selfish. Let's be honest, everyone is playing a selfish game, but I like okay, for instance, so trivia challenge. I watched Jordan throw the trivia challenge. I was up there and I said this in the last interview, but he looks back at Laurel and says, I can't say Anissa's name for my game. And she says, I can. And so that happened, right? And I was hanging there and I'm just like, Jordan, we can't. I'm like, what are you doing? I don't want you to lose. Like, anytime I compete in a challenge, I am, no matter who the target is, I am doing what I can to make sure that they win, you know?
Mm.
And that's how I was playing the game because I was like, the only way I can show up and be a good teammate, right, is by doing that. And then I started to realize, okay, they're playing like a very ride or die style game. Like they're playing not to win, but not to lose. Why would I want to nominate myself when I know that this is happening?
Mm.
And it carries over into like, then, all of a sudden, like, so when we're in our team meeting, everybody on my team is trying to get me to self nominate. And they're painting it as like, you're a bad, not a bad teammate, but you are being selfish in this game. We all have to do it. And I'm like, whoa, wait up a second. The only person who is self nominated here is Tori and Jordan. And I had Naya coming at me saying, I put on the jersey for Era 3. I'm competing no matter what. I've been down there in the sand. And I was like, but you didn't volunteer. You lost the invitational and then Darrell selected you. And then Avery was just like, well, I volunteered. I've been down in the sand because of the team. And I was just like, you stalemated with Tony, and that was a decision you made for your game to defend our mutual best friend. You know what I mean? This
Mm.
isn't, it was just a convenient time for everyone to say, like, yeah, I self nominated. Not everyone on our team did. Devin did not self nominate. He actually was just like, I don't want to self nominate. And then Jenny picked him anyway, even after saying he didn't want to do it. But then all of a sudden, now that it was my turn, like everybody, obviously it benefited everyone there to
Mm.
to follow suit with what the bigger plan was.
Can I
And,
just go ahead? Sorry. Sorry.
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, John A., correct me if I'm wrong. There were 3 phases to volunteering. Chaos. I don't understand why the hell people are doing this. 2 was groupthink. People kind of
Mm-hmm,
like, okay. And then the third part was it was weaponized. And
mm-hmm,
and what I mean by weaponized is I never had any plans on volunteering myself, but after enough people started to group think with
mm-hmm,
it, and
Right.
then it was the
mm-hmm.
I already did this. Once it was the I already did this, well, you volunteered willingly with
When you knew who your
alternative.
opponents were going to be.
Yes, yes. So like there was a motive behind it, or there was a motive behind it. You were either going to get the favor repaid, or you were
Right.
doing it to repay a favor that was already owed to somebody, which is only going to strengthen your game in the minute. Now,
Yes.
for other people, once this became groupthink, and even Emily became a victim of groupthink because
Mm-hmm.
it's her first season back and she's like, I'm a competitor. What did I train for if I'm not going to volunteer? It's my
Yes.
time. And I'm trying to tell her, I don't think that's the right strategy. Well, after she did it, I'm sitting there thinking, like, am I going to throw my man card in the garbage can right now and walk away like I'm trying to
Yeah.
weasel out of an elimination when I love this game and I love to compete? Like, I didn't even know how to feel about myself in that moment, getting back to what you were saying earlier, where you almost start to like question yourself. That was my moment. I'm
Yeah.
questioning myself, like, dude, we came here to play. Now it's
Yeah.
like everybody's volunteering. It's my turn to volunteer.
Yeah.
I felt like my performance was good enough to have an argument in most challenges where it's like I showed up and I did the work I was supposed to, minus that boat where I was in the back. That was a lot different than I expected. And it was like that for a lot of people, but I will
The
own that
circle
spot
boat.
for sure. Oh my gosh, for sure.
I hate
And
that charge.
oh no, not that one, the longboat with
Oh.
the dragon.
Oh, the rowing one.
Yes, I
Okay.
was in the back of that. So like honestly, like if the last phase of it was like you're either, your team's either going to try to put you on blast
Mhm.
for not being a team player or you're going in. And at that point, I'm like, just take me.
The
Mm.
moment that I realized that it was being used as a control of like who goes in was right before Derek and Horacio's elimination. I remember I was there with, it was like Rachel was there, Tori was there, and Derek was there. And Rachel's like, yeah, we're going to have to go back and forth between Tina and I, right? And I was like, yeah, that's the only option for Era One. And she's, in that moment, Derek's like, you know what? I don't want to choose between you and Tori. Like, why don't you guys choose who goes next? And then that way, the blood's not on my hands, basically. But I said in that moment, I was just like, I, Rachel said, "Oh, it's going to be Tina," and I was just like, "I don't want to go against Tina." And then she's like, "Oh, you don't want to go against Tina?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then I was like, "I also don't want to go against you. I don't want to go into elimination. Is what's happening." And then it was a very
Right,
like,
right.
"Well, you have to go in at some point," and I'm like, "I don't know. I don't think that I have to do
Yeah, you're
anything."
like, maybe you didn't see me play in the past.
Yeah, it's like I don't think I have to, but it was used as a way. And then that was the moment that I knew. I was just like, okay, there's something bigger going on here. And I
Mm.
really truly think that on Era 3, I think that Tori saw me as a threat. And I think that she wanted me out. And the way that like Stay Vacation or like this bigger group operates is like, take out my threat and then when it's your turn. That's the reason why they play together. It's like,
Mm.
then I'll take out yours, you know? But
Mm.
anyways, I knew all of this was happening and it was very chaotic. And I didn't want to like verbalize what was going on because I didn't want to blow up people's games. Like, I didn't want to sit there and say, Jordan, what do you mean? You threw the last challenge. And then Devin, the last challenge, we were trying really hard to. I've never seen someone so happy to lose a challenge in my life. And that was why, like, they showed at the end, but I'm like, I was pissed off because Nehemiah was on the line. And they like we dropped the Y and then waited until Air 4 won. And then they're like, okay, let's go. Because they didn't want to get last place. But they also
Wow.
didn't want to get first place. Okay.
Mm.
Wow.
Yes. And so I was visually seeing this and they're like, no, what do you mean? We're always trying to win. And the thing about it is, it's like Devin's a genius, right? And like they're so smart, but I don't think they realize that I'm just as smart as they are. And
You are.
I think that it became a threat. I became a threat to their game because I was just like, wait, I'm not
Yeah.
going to follow suit. Like, because I see what's happening. I'm not going to call you guys out. I'm not going to blow up your spot. But like, I'm also not going to put myself on the line so that you can like help people get. And I said it to CT, like, when I was sitting there in that conversation, I was just like, I feel like this is a plot to like get me as an opponent and get me out. And I was right. I was told that I was selected by Rachel, like, and she handpicked. She said she wanted, Aviv from Era 2, me from Era 3, Michelle from Era 4, and sitting with Nehemiah, I was sitting there. I'm like, Nehemiah, why? Why did you? And he was like proud of the fact. He's like, well, guess who I gave her? I gave her Laurel and Jenny. And I was like, you also gave me Laurel and Jenny and fell right into the trap. Do you get what I'm saying? And he was
Mm-hmm.
just like, no. He's like, you're going to win. You got to win. I was like, yeah, but there's a chance that my team will not win because I've watched them throw the last two challenges, like, because that's how they're playing. And I was playing in a way where I was just like, I don't care who the target is. I just want our team to win. I want Air 3 to be strong. I want to dominate. and let's all get there in the end. And then we can, maybe it'll go individual, whatever. But I was not following suit because I knew all of this information and I'm seeing it as it's happening. But yet I'm painted as like, well, even like, Corey believes like, oh, John is my downfall, whatever. And it's just like, there's certain people in the game that are sheep and they follow what is they're told to do, right? And I was resisting. And so at that point, I was no longer beneficial to the Vacation Alliance or to the people that were involved in this control. And so they're like, all right, she's got to go. And
Mm.
that's what happened.
Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
that could be like an entire series in and of itself. I mean, before we go, I would be remiss not to mention Brad. You brought her up, Emily. I mean, again, you talk about this unique headspace you were in. I'm sure it helped to find some comfort in the
Oh my
form of
gosh.
another
Yeah.
person there. So talk to me about that relationship you built and what continued, after you could sort of go out the door one right after the other. What's the status of things nowadays?
So, like we spoke about with just being mindful and of self development and mental health as a whole, um, I was before I left for the Challenge 40, I was meditating at sunrise and sunset just to show gratitude for the blessings in my life. And for anybody curious, that does work, by the way. It definitely provides you a higher quality of life. But the ironic part was I was the first one up most mornings, and I would very quietly slide out to the pool to do my morning sunrise meditations, even before challenge days. And I would bring my oolong tea. And the one thing I noticed, I was waking up at sunrise naturally, and so is Emily. So it was just kind of ironic that we both ended up at the pool every morning together. And we were both doing almost the exact same thing, which kind of helped us build some rapport early on just to catch up and hadn't seen each other in a while. And before you knew it, I was like bringing her tea out with my tea and things like that. And it just kind of developed into um, a little bit of we kind of hooked up. And then after we did hook up, the game was so intense too. Like, I feel like we we are still really good friends. We're not romantically involved anymore, but I will say she's a beautiful person. She's a beautiful energy. I appreciate her and the energy she shares with the people around her. Her heart is so kind, um, but we don't really live anywhere near each other. And it was kind of like, like I was almost feeling like after we kind of like made out a little bit or whatever, I almost felt like worried to ruin the friendship because it was so incredible,
Mm.
and I've talked to her a few times since. We definitely get along and enjoy our phone conversations, but definitely not romantically involved anymore.
Last quick thing I want to ask, almost in honor of the unextended train of thought that Jonna gave off here. What's one thing that you wish had made the edit from your time on the show? Could be something strategically, personally, comedically, etc. Something you wish the fans got to see. Jonna, I'll start with you.
Well, I haven't seen my exit
Mm,
yet. So, I don't know. I hope that they show it kind of like the way that it went down. I do think that in the past few episodes that I've watched, I'm glad that they showed that clip of Jordan like supposedly not throwing it or whatever. And I'm glad that it's leading up to this because there was so much more going on and I wish I would have spoken up more. But as far as like what was not shown, I do wish that they showed our like team meeting to get me to self-nominate because like I at no point in time said I want to self-nominate. I was
mm,
actually saying I do not want to self-nominate. But it's not because I'm selfish and whatever. It's because I see what's going on, you guys, and I'm
mm,
not going to fall into that trap.
mm.
But
Br-
ultimately, I did.
Brad, what about you?
Oh, Mike, I don't know if you're ready for this. So we talk a lot about sleep, you and I feel like.
Yeah,
Um, so it's the night before an elimination. It's already challenging enough to sleep. This is the second
Oh
time this
my
has
God.
happened to me in the challenge experience. So the first time my comforter got switched on All Stars 2, the cleaning people come in. Let me paint this picture properly.
Brian's
So when the
allergic to everything.
well, it's not even just the allergies because I do use hyperallergenic soap detergents for my sheets and clothing. But a lot of times the cleaning crews come in, they have this huge house to clean with all these beds. So I think they
right.
just take all the comforters off, put them in a pile, I don't know exactly what they do with the sheets, but like sometimes they rotate the comforters. And the first time this happened to me, Tyler blew his nose into his comforter, and I mean, cleaned out his
Oh,
sinuses in that bad boy. And I came home from a challenge and just threw myself in the bed, and then saw all this disgusting snot right next to my arm and almost puked. So this is the second time this happened to me. It's the night before the elimination. I'm laying in my bed and I'm trying to think like, all right, stay chill, like elimination, just take your mind off of it. And all of a sudden I noticed this is not my comforter. And then Darrell, right around the same time as me realizing this, says, oh, your comforter's over here. That's CT's. And then he started laughing and goes, oh man, he goes, CT just shaved the calluses off his feet into his comforter
oh,
before he went home. Mike, I almost puked in my mouth. Okay. I mean, I'm like, and then I realized these aren't even my sheets. And I'm like, oh my, so like I maybe pulled off 2.5 hours of sleep before that elimination because I think I forgot where I ended up taking that little nap. But I was just like, it doesn't sound like a big deal to some people, maybe, but like when I think about
no,
sitting in a bed with somebody's dead, callous skin cells in my sheets, I was
no.
just struggling to get back to bed after that. And not for nothing, Corey put on an amazing show. And I want to just remind everybody that hears this, that man is at the peak of his challenge career. He's so hungry for that W. He did an amazing job in there. He out strategized me. And I was a little jealous because that's usually my angle on eliminations. I'm used to
Mhm.
being a strategy guy. And then I had to sit back and watch my one arm tosses or my one arm like bullet throws. And I see him throwing the chest pass. And I hats off to him. But yeah, that used to be my gig and I want it back.
Well, you all were throwing some great answers at me today. Thank you for bringing so much context and so many TMI details with that last one, Brad. And this was such a great time getting the chance to talk with the two of you. Always great to see you
Thank you.
back on our screens. I hope it won't be long before it happens again. And thank you both so much again. This
Thank
was
you.
such a great time.
Thank
Of
you,
course.
Mike. Appreciate
Yep.
you, man.
And of course, all the best to you and your families, and have a great day. Thank you again.
You too. Thank you.
Bye bye.